Eccoci qua, buonasera a tutte e a tutti. Siamo arrivati alla terza anteprima online degli EV Pro Days 2025 che vi ricordo si terranno a Trieste tra pochi giorni, dal 30 ottobre al 1 novembre. Oggi, come sempre, io faccio una breve introduzione in italiano, ma tra poco passiamo all'inglese anche per i nostri ospiti. Allora, oggi abbiamo con noi due ospiti, diciamo, importanti anche per il loro lavoro in due ambiti che si sono mescolati, nel senso che Jordan Mechner, che è qui con noi, tra poco Francesco e Alessandro lo introdurranno, è il padre di Prince of Persia, per cui e anche di The Last Express, gioco davvero storico, però ha lavorato insieme a Mario Alberti anche ad una graphic novel che è un adattamento del Conte di Monte Cristo di Dumas, e che ci racconteranno oggi. Quindi era anche molto bello vedere questi mondi che si contaminano, esperienze professionali che passano dal videogioco alla graphic novel. Vi ricordo come sempre che se volete venire a Trieste potete iscrivervi, basta andare a questo link, è gratuito, quindi se avete piacere di essere con noi anche in presenza a Trieste basta iscriversi, seguendo questo link c'è anche il programma completo e appunto il link per registrarsi. Che dire, io ringrazio innanzitutto Francesco e Alessandro di GameCvlt per essere qui con noi stasera a moderare questo incontro, e lascerei subito a voi la parola per introdurre appunto Jordan e Mario. Ringrazio sia Francesco che Alessandro, ma I wanna also say thank to Jordan and Mario for accepting our invitation to this online preview of the EV Pro Days 2025. So thank you again, and Francesco, Alessandro, the floor is yours.
Okay, so good evening and welcome to everyone following this live stream from EV Pro Days. I'm Alessandro Redaelli from GameCvlt, and I'm here with Francesco, also, as you might have guessed, from GameCvlt. Today we have two incredible guests, two internationally renowned creators who have come together for a brand new graphic novel inspired by the Count of Monte Cristo. It's a project that bridges the world of comics, cinema, and video games, and two artists who have each helped shape those worlds in their own way. Let me start by introducing Jordan Mechner, writer, game designer, filmmaker, and one of the true pioneers of storytelling in the gaming industry. He began his career in the 80s with Karateka, and then changed the history of gaming with Prince of Persia, famous for its lifelike animation and cinematic storytelling. Over the years, Jordan has never stopped crossing boundaries between art forms, moving games from games to film, literature, and graphic novels. He wrote the screenplay for Disney's Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, and is also the author of the acclaimed graphic novels Templar and Monte Cristo, which we'll be talking about today. Please welcome Jordan Mechner. And now I hand it over to Francesco, who will introduce our second guest, Mario Alberti.
Well, Mario, I took your bio from your website, so I hope everything is correct. Mario Alberti is a comic book artist and writer who loves telling stories with images and seeking beauty in the process. With over 30 years of professional experience, he published works for Sergio Bonelli Editore in Italy, Glenant, Delcourt in France, and Marvel and DC Comics in the United States, among others. As an illustrator, his works are featured in advertising, covers, and posters. And I would like to add also that he created 3 stunning posters for the Trieste Science Plus Fiction Festival, who is hosting also EV Pro Days, helping to define the festival new visual identity, which has never been the same since. He's also active as a freelance creative consultant and storyboard lead. at Terraform Studios. He has worked for Skydance Media, Epic Games, and a lot of other reality. He's also a fantastic storyboard artist for a lot of blockbuster as Jurassic World Rebirth and others. So welcome, Mario.
Thank you, Francesco.
And we can start with the presentation of Jordan, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So shall we talk about how we came to do this modern version of the Count of Monte Cristo? It started, I think maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I had read the original, the wonderful adventure story by Dumas, which of course is set in the 19th century, in the Napoleonic era. Now, I'm American and I grew up in New York and towns around there. And I reread the book and it struck me what a wonderful fit this would be with the terrible period that we had lived through after 9/11 in the US, with Guantanamo and the, innocent people being sort of swept up in this war on terror. And reading Monte Cristo, I realized that the period that Dumas was writing about, when people in France had been, were so afraid of the return of Napoleon that this justified, suspending the rules of, of a trial and civil rights. And something similar had just happened, in the US. Well, this gave me the idea of writing a modern update of the Count of Monte Cristo, about an innocent man who is sent to prison unjustly, and then who is transformed by the experience and comes back many years later in a different identity to take revenge against the people who did that to him. So I spent some time writing the script, but how to find an artist who would be capable of bringing all of the complex settings and the many characters and themes of this book to life. And also it's a historical piece, even though it's set in our time, it goes from 2005 through the years up to the present day. And, as Dumas was always very attentive to history, our story also needed to be very accurate to the times and places. And so this was an incredible chance to find, an artist of the level of Mario, who was willing not only to spend the years that it took to bring this book to life, because, Dumas' version was 1,000 pages long. We had to compress it to only 220 pages.
That was a tough job.
So it's a very dense book, very compressed. And so Mario, maybe you want to tell about how we met, how we were introduced by GameCvlt, and the first. What did you think about this project? Did you hesitate to take it on?
Well, it was the French publisher GameCvlt that contacted me, offering me to join Jordan in this adventure. And of course, I did read Monte Cristo when I was younger, and I loved the book, and I love the idea of picking up the challenge to do this adaptation. I really liked the concept, the ideas that Jordan put there. And also, I have to say that I really like the idea of working with the guy that created Prince of Persia, because I spent countless hours playing that game. So that was a treat in itself. So of course I had to say yes. And then we actually met in Angoulême. We talked about working together. We talked about the project. We felt that we could have a very good relationship working together. So it was a no-brainer to say yes to that, because everything was going to be great. I have to say, I was a bit scared at first, because I consider myself more of a science fiction / maybe fantasy author rather than a modern days and contemporary stuff. But yeah, it was a great story and a good challenge, so I had to pick it up. And that's what I did eventually.
Mario, I remember in the beginning you expressed this hesitation that because you had done science fiction and fantasy, you weren't sure about all the research that it would take to depict these places accurately. But I have to say, you're a demon for research. You're like me, where many artists would just make something up and figure it will be fine. You spent days.
Yeah, we made an almost too perfect pair when it comes to research, because I'm thorough and you're even more though. So it was really it took a while, but I think we can say we are happy with the result, and we used a lot of research and documentation and references coming from TV series. For example, I remember that you told me to watch Succession, that I didn't watch until then, and I was hooked up, and I had to look it to watch it all, because that was exactly the kind of entourage environment we would need for the story. And yeah, that was fun. It was fun. Again, the thing that I like about science fiction is that you have a chance and an excuse to put everything you like into whatever. When you do something that is time period precise, you need to be accurate. You cannot just, even when it comes to light, to how the light plays with the buildings in New York, for example, you need to, at least I try to portray, the most accurate way how it is, and the way they dress, the way they behave, the way they gesture. Everyone needs to be characterized in a way that it's natural and feels natural. So that's part of the gig, right?
Yeah, we were constantly coming up with film and TV references for places. I remember that for the first part of the story that takes place in 2005, it's worth saying that you had never been to these places. I grew up in a small town near Connecticut, but you of course grew up in Italy, and the way that people dressed, in 2005, the kinds of shirt that they would wear, and the kind of the mix of people that you would see on the street was different. And so I remember I recommended a Ben Affleck movie from that period, from the early 2000s, and it's kind of working class people, and
I think it kind of make easier because we have an infinite amount of movies, TV series, books we can take from, and to be accurate in every detail that matters. And sometimes I wonder how much harder it was for a generation before ours to make comics. I mean, one of the most difficult things that not only myself, many others find that drawing horses, it's one of the most difficult things. And I imagine, like Galeppini, the original author for text, that had to go and look horses and draw horses live. He wouldn't be able to just freeze a movie and copy them in the tradition that he would need. So yeah, that's it makes it. We have no excuses now to not be precise and accurate when we do stuff.
Yeah. Maybe this would be a good moment to show the 1-minute video trailer for the book. That way people who haven't read it can see, what it looks like and get the basic story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a nice job.
Yeah, they there we saw some of the locations, including the island prison, which is an
Oh yeah,
important setting in the first part of the book. That was
I
that was
remember. I
interesting.
remember I'm sorry. I remember that
Yeah, go.
when we were doing some research, I was in Croatia and took a lot of pictures for Victor's Island and locations that we would end up using in the book eventually. It was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, it's a fictional island prison set in the Strait of Guardafui off the coast of Africa, but between Yemen and Somalia. There's an island there. There really is, and we looked at that island and the kinds of birds that were on that island. But of course, there's no prison. But we imagined that there might have been. There were other kind of black prisons around the world that where prisoners were sent, but without without official jurisdiction. So we kind of created a composite.
And the tanker, and then the route that Sam does to go back to the States. We did quite a bit of research for that too, to kind of, even if we had a little only a few pages to show the kind of routine he needed to, and kind of people he would meet and humanity he would meet in his journey back home.
Yeah,
so that was nice, and I really like our Abate Faria. Your idea for the Russian accountant was formidable. I really like the character. I remember.
Yeah, it's really it's kind of a global story because it goes from it starts in the small town in Connecticut, but then the hero is, when he's sent to prison, is sent across the world, and so his journey to get back, it's really a migrant journey from across through Oman and then coming to Dubai, and until he reappears in Croatia under a new identity. And so it involves international finance, and so of course we looked at the actual migrant routes and the actual international mafia and banking systems that exist, and made a fictional version, but it's very, very rooted in reality. Mario, do you want to show some of the sketches and how
I think we
how
can
you
we can
started to
show
put
how
this
we
into
started working on the book, actually, which is the thing we started working on was our character. So this is Sam before he turns into Victor.
Yeah, this is Sam
This is Victor, Sam, after his ordeal and when he comes back to take his revenge. This is Abby, his fiancée. Probably she was the most difficult character for me to find. And here we can see that we have both versions, has her as younger woman, and later on in the story where she's an attorney, right?
Yeah, she's a difficult character because, I mean, she's kind of an angel. Sam, he's in love with her. They're young. They're in their early 20s, and then they're going to get married, and then they get separated. And so he's in prison for 10 years, and so he's holding in his mind this ideal of this girl that he was in love with. And of course, in the meantime, she's married someone else, and she goes on and has her life. So she had to be a real person, but at the same time, to justify this ideal, that Sam is holding in his mind, that motivates everything. But then, of course, when he encounters her again,
and then we have our other female lead, Danica, our agent.
Yeah, an important character. This is one, I think, difficulty in adapting the original Dumas book to today, because there really is no second strong female character for that can be a worthy partner for for the Count
An
of Monte
opponent.
Cristo. In the time when Dumas wrote that book, it was a much less egalitarian time, and in fact the character that he ends up with is kind of she's literally his slave, a princess and a slave girl. That's not very satisfying, I think, to a reader today. So instead we created, I think, probably the biggest character that's not in Dumas' original, which is a young FBI agent who becomes suspicious of Victor, of the Monte Cristo character, that he's hiding something, that he's not who he says who he is. But she's the only one who really thinks it's worthwhile to investigate him. She works at the FBI. They have other priorities. And nobody is pushing them to investigate this guy. So she has to kind of do it guerrilla style on her own time. And of course, she is the one.
I remember that you had in mind Faye Dunaway in the Thomas Crown Affair, right?
That was one model, yeah. The relationship between Faye Dunaway and Steve McQueen, where he's a billionaire and she's trying to prove that he's a criminal, and it almost becomes like a cat and mouse game between the two of them.
Yeah.
And of course, he ends up coming to respect her, and they fall in love.
Yeah, of course. And then we have the man that Abby eventually decided to marry, which was Sam's friend Andrew. Both versions again. Then we have one of our evil guy, Dalglish.
Yeah, the kind of the Iraq
probably
war
my
contractor,
favorite character. Maybe
small-time
after
scammer.
Danica, maybe my favorite character to draw. Then we have Farrell, the agent that goes after Sam in the beginning.
Yeah, when we first meet him, he's an FBI agent, and then
we have more characters. We have Farrell's son, his friends, then the Croatian gang that kidnaps Dalglish in the end. So this is what we did before starting doing the book, trying to figure out how our characters would look like. And then this is an example of what I usually do. I had Jordan's script for the pages, and the first thing that I do is try to turn the script into a storyboard, which is a rough, but not so rough that anyone else can understand what's going on. Sketch of the pages where I decide basically the layout. I decide where to put the balloons. Where to put the balloons is actually the most important and the first thing that you want to do in the page, because that's how you build the path that the reader will follow reading the pages. And especially you want to make sure that you have room enough in each panel for all the dialogues and stuff that everybody's going to say. After this, I do digital inking and values, where I just basically work with lights. And after that, our colorist Claudia Palescandolo had her touch with colors. So this is the final result of the pages. Same goes here for another sequence. This is a sequence where they arrest Sam and take him away before he could meet with Abby. This is the storyboard. This is the digital inks and values, and this is Claudia's work with the colors. And then there's the last thing that we had to do, which is decide covers. These are the sketches for the covers. We did it for the first book. We knew that we would have 3 books. So this is the sketch for the first one, second one, and third one. And these are the final first. And this is the idea, because we wanted to have something that would allow us to unite the 3 books together and see Victor in both his incarnations. And yeah, that's it. That's it for what I brought here today.
Okay.
You want to add something?
Well,
on
I think we've
endless
given
research for a cover.
we've given a good overview. Do you guys want to ask us any questions, or shall we just keep talking?
Yeah,
We can start with
Yeah.
the Q&A.
right.
Yes.
Awesome.
So if anyone want to do a question on the live streaming, can ask, and we ask to Jordan and Mario. So I start with one question for Jordan. Both Karateka and Prince of Persia used rotoscoping with real actors filmed and then turned into in-game animation. How much of the real world enters in your creation, and how important is it for you that reality contaminates fiction?
Yeah, well, I think it's very important, and of course, those early games you mentioned, Karateka and Prince of Persia, at this time in the early 1980s, the screen was 192 pixels wide, so it was a very simplified representation of reality. But even with so few pixels, I think the rotoscoping technique of taking real live action footage of a karate fighter that I filmed on Super 8 film, and then for
Sure.
Prince of Persia, for my brother, who was 15 years old, running and climbing and doing the moves. Even when it's reduced to 40 pixels high with just the silhouette of the character, you still get the humanity and the specific way that this kid, my brother, who is not a trained athlete, not a stunt person, but the way that he climbs, the way that he jumps and slips and like regains his balance, it's very human. It's even if you know him, you can immediately recognize him just from the silhouette. And even for millions of players around the world who never met my brother, they can see that and they can feel that it's a real person. Not like if you ask an AI to say, give me a person running, you get something
Sure.
that's realistic but generic. But if you film any one person doing it, anybody, it's them. And so I think the fact that it was him is something that let players project themselves in fantasy into this world. And there's this is true of everything, I think. Even if you're drawing trees to make a background, of course you can go on the internet and look up a tree. But if you go into a forest and you look at the trees and you sit down, with your sketchbook and you draw that tree there, you'll get something much more interesting. And I think this is true for all aspects of art, but also of storytelling. It's the detail that comes to life in our imagination because we feel that there's a reality in it. We sense that.
Nice.
Agree.
Mario, your work often mix comics, cinema, and video games. And as we've seen, your comic book composition has a real cinematic direction. So how important do you think is for an artist to expand their horizons across different art forms to let them contaminate and enrich each other?
Well, it's it's even more basic than that. You need to be curious all the time, and never cease being curious about everything. So I try and replicate everything that I like, and I love movies, and I love games, and I love comics. So I really try to put everything that I love inside what I do. Even if I'm doing a comic, I always try and imagine that I have actually a camera to build the scene. How would I have the actor move around in the scene? Where would I put the camera? How would I have the camera move around on the scene? So it keeps the flow, it keeps it keeps it natural. It's always trying to imagine how you build a line and you follow it. the first line that, as I said before, the first line you do in the page is the line that you imagine, the imaginary line that you follow reading through the balloons. But you also have the lines of characters moving, the lines of camera movement, the lines that light changes make, and all these lines need to be aware of each other and coherent and harmonic with each other. So that's what I try to do, and the same goes with trying to put everything I love into my pages. It's this huge pot of stuff boiling, and but trying to find a recipe that tastes good in a way. It's always about trying to do something that it's nice.
Yeah. This is something that impressed me from the beginning about Mario's art, is that it uses the page in a very dynamic way.
Yeah.
That is, it's not just, one panel after another to tell a story. Mario really thinks for each sequence about what's happening here and how can the structure of the pages, if it's one page or if it's a two-page spread, how will the shape of the panels add interest and add meaning to what's happening. And he would really try out different ways, and sometimes a series of vertical panels, and then with a big one behind them. It's always very well thought out, and I think that makes the book very engaging to read. You never feel that you're stuck in a repeating rhythm. Every page is a new dynamic composition.
Mm-hmm. Now I have a question for Jordan. Your career began with, as we know, with video games at the time when they were not yet a real business. And this reinterpretation of Monte Cristo rotates a lot around the world of money and finance. So there is a bit of you in the vengeance spirit of Monte Cristo, now that video games have become an industry that often revolves around money.
Well, a lot of things revolve around money. And I think one of the pleasures of researching this book was that it gave me a reason to read a lot of real life business stories and crime stories about different financial scandals. Mm-hmm. There was Enron, and then back in the 80s there were earlier versions. So I always enjoyed that kind of story. And one of the fun things about having spent 40 years in the video game business and seeing it kind of explode in the film business too, and see some people become millionaires or billionaires, and then some businesses become very big and then they collapse. So I've had the chance to meet and know a lot of these people and sort of seen these hijinks. My own life is relatively peaceful. Fortunately, I haven't been involved in any huge, spectacular, scandalous disasters.
Conspiration, yes.
Yes, but for me, it's not so hard for me to imagine, the characters in this book and to connect them with certain people I know and what things that they've been through. And so for me, that's part of the underlying reality, that I like to put even into a fantasy work, whether it's Monte Cristo or Prince of Persia. I always like to connect it with real life things that I have experienced or that I know people who have. And so this kind of gives it that extra interest.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another question about video games, but for Mario. Do you look to video games as a source of inspiration in terms of aesthetics, atmosphere, or visual language?
Anything really can be a source of inspiration. As a game, I consider myself a gamer. I love playing games.
Okay.
So yeah, of course, games are yet another of the ingredients that I not always being aware of that I put into my into my casserole. It's a bit of that too. the nice thing about the games, one thing that I really like doing when I play games is just moving around and, looking for the good angle to put the
And
character
feel
in
yeah.
the series, and see how I could compose the scene
Sure.
and the image. How could I use the scenery that they worked with to get something that it's nice to watch. And then of course you remember, even if you're not completely aware of it, it's something that gets
Remains with you.
and remains with you, and then pops out as much as things that I saw maybe when I was a kid in movies that I love, like Shadow. I had this favorite of mine. This was a huge love of mine. It's a science fiction series which is called UFO Shadow, and I know that I like with the girls with the purple hairs. I only later discovered that they had purple hairs because TVs was in black and white back then. But that's the kind of thing that maybe pop out in your stuff, even if you're not aware of it, and everything makes an ingredient for what you will do in the future, probably. So definitely being a gamer and loving games, definitely games are also something that I use, not always on purpose, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
And
There's
Mario,
a question.
we have a couple of video game Easter eggs in Monte Cristo, don't we? There's Dalglish, the Wall Street hedge fund guy. He plays video games with his son, who also is playing the kid is playing on his iPad in a fancy auction in New York. Maybe it's not the best advertisement for video games. There, we also have some Prince of Persia Easter eggs, but in a subtle way that fits the story.
Okay. There's a question from the audience. Stefano asked for both of you. What about turning the book into a video game? What genre would it be?
Oh, never thought of that one.
That's difficult. That's a difficult one.
Yeah. It's not a shooter, that's for sure.
An online shooter, yeah.
Maybe it could be an adventure
maybe a visual
game.
novel,
Yeah,
or an adventure game.
Maybe there's a way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, puzzle.
A puzzle game.
Financial puzzles.
Okay. A new genre.
Not for everybody.
Not for everybody. Not a big success.
No. I have another question for both. Would you like to collaborate again in the future, maybe on a project in a different medium, not on a graphic novel, but maybe, I don't know, in a movie or a video game or something else?
Of course we would.
Yeah.
We talk about it actually. So I'm hoping it will happen eventually. We have ideas. As everyone doing this job we have, our drawer is full of ideas and projects.
Yeah.
Right? What you say?
Yeah, and hey, and if it's been discussed to adapt our graphic novel of Monte Cristo as a TV series. I don't know if this will happen or how, but if it does, it would be wonderful if we could work together again with
it would be amazing. Yeah.
Getting to visualize these sequences as storyboards again, but in the context of a TV series instead of a book.
Well, everything is already here, so it's simple.
Okay, I have one more question for Mario, the classic question of our time. What's your opinion on generative artificial intelligence? Do you think it will change or even undermine the work of artists in the coming years?
Well, this is not a question that gets a simple answer. You have many
we have
levels.
time.
Yeah, the one thing I don't want to have anything to do with stuff like Midjourney or AI generating images or something like that, because I think that the first thing we need to deal with is actually it's theft from our colleagues and other people. So it's not something that I'm willing in any way to use, because I don't think until we have some kind of regulation that permits the author that has been ransacked so far of their jobs and of their careers, and have some sort of compensation for that, and have a say whether they want or not to be used to train the intelligent the artificial intelligence. This is not something that I'm willing to use at all. Once we have settled this problem, probably that might become a tool that we would use. Personally, I don't. The thing is, I draw because drawing is and telling story is actually my way of understanding the world, people, stuff that surrounds me. If I have someone else or AI or even someone else do it for me, what's the point?
Sure.
There's no reason for me to go on and telling stories and doing art, drawing or something like that, because it's my way, not only to express myself, but to understand things. I don't want to give up any of that. I want to do it myself, every part of it. So it's
Sure.
at least for what regards my own personal path to understanding and evolving as an artist and as a storyteller. And as a storyteller, I don't think that artificial intelligence can have any part in it. That's me, though. I have some, one of the things that you actually try and seek when you are drawing or painting or whatever is I think that they have in English this beautiful expression, the happy accident. You need to try and create the circumstances where something that you did not predict or could not foresee presents itself. Like when you use watercolors and you have water going around, and you have some stuff that you wouldn't happening with the colors that you would not predict, that might lead you someplace that you would not foresee before. And that creatively, it's huge. It's a great opportunity, to evolve and to find new ways. So maybe if you say to an intelligent an artificial intelligence to try and do some stuff like, let's say, hey, try and do a pirate, but it's not a pirate, and maybe artificial intelligence will come up with some ideas that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But then again, I really prefer doing, all the research that we were talking before with Jordan, all the research of
Sure.
it's not only always about the stories, it's also about the images, the characters. I wanna look at movies, and I wanna look at actors to see and try to assimilate how they move, how they move their hands, how they walk, how they sit. Everything, it's about understanding. If I have something else that does that for me, what's the point? That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Jordan,
Yeah.
you want to add something?
Yeah, I feel the same. We were talking earlier about reality, about the importance of basing our work on something real. To me, the value of art, whether it's written or drawn or filmed or whatever it is, it's a way to represent reality, and it's also seeing the world through the eyes of the person or the people who made it. That's the value. So right now, AI can simulate that. It can imitate it. And you can look at something, you can look at a photograph, and you can, for a moment, you can believe that this is a photograph that was taken by somebody of something. And then you look more closely and you say, okay, no, this was created by AI. For me, the moment that I know that it's not real, it loses all interest for me. I don't, for AI to get better and better at imitating this to the point where it's so convincing that we can't tell the difference, that doesn't seem like a good thing to me. It actually, it saddens me and it scares me, because when I search for an image, when I search for things online to inspire me and to, like, let's say, I draw as well. Recently, I drew a graphic novel, a memoir of my family. And so I was looking online for things like, give me an images of the boardwalk in Nice, in 1940. And so, I can't quite find it. So I'm like, oh, here's a film that was filmed in Nice on the boardwalk, but in 1935. And so I'm looking at the people, the backgrounds, I'm looking at how they're dressed to draw the same scenes. And sometimes, as Mario said, there is a happy accident. Like I say, okay, this is the angle that I want. I can see this building in the background. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, there's a lady walking a dog. That's perfect. I never would have thought of having a lady like that and with a fur walking her dog. But it fits. It's perfect. It resonates with the story in a way that I had, as a writer, I couldn't have planned. But now as an artist, I can use this happy accident and add this character. But but that's a conscious choice that I make, and it's partly inspired by knowing that this was a real woman who was walking her dog on that boardwalk in Nice in 1935. So I'm happy to kind of bring her back as a cartoon character and put her in this scene where where my dad as a child is on this boardwalk in Nice. That brings meaning. But if I asked AI, give me a scene of the boardwalk in Nice in 1940, it would give me something that was perfectly convincing. And I would take elements from that AI image and put it in my book, but it wouldn't
it's
be
not
real.
interesting.
And so it's as capable of giving me something that doesn't fit. So maybe somebody who's dressed in a way that you would never have seen at that time, but I won't know it because, I was born later. I'm looking at a historical period that I never knew. So that disturbs me, that AI can give us things without flagging them right away as this is made up. Instead, it's trying to make it look like it's real. And we believe it's real because we're actually very easy to fool. But the only thing that's missing, the resolution is perfect, the realism, the lighting, everything is perfect. The only thing that's missing is the only thing that has any value, which is that it's real or it's expressing the way that somebody sees the world. AI does neither of these things.
Sure.
Eccomi, here I am. I'm back. I was behind the scene watching everything, and it was nice to. We started from Karateka and Prince of Persia, and we ended with the AI. So it was like a time machine from the past to the future. And I want to thank you for the lecture. So it was very interesting. And I think the nice thing, I said it before on the other lecture, during the other lecture, is that you can watch this video after this live streaming. So you can watch it later on our YouTube channel. And then it can be helpful for students and researchers as well, interesting in connection between graphic novels, video games, and so thank you very much, Mario. Thank you, Jordan, for accepting our invitation again, and to Alessandro and Francesco for being here as moderators. I'm going to switch into Italian just to say bye to the public. Ci vediamo domani alla solita ora, quindi alle 18, per un'altra lecture con Pierre Corbinet, che è lo sceneggiatore e autore di Wednesday, un gioco che parla di temi molto delicati come l'incesto, ma anche come si può uscire, come si può guarire da certi traumi anche attraverso un videogioco. Quindi chi vuole può collegarsi domani sera sempre alle 18 per seguire questa diretta. Grazie ancora a tutte e a tutti e a tutti i nostri ospiti. Ci vediamo a Trieste per l'edizione 2025 degli EV Pro Days. Grazie ancora e buona serata a tutti.
Ciao,
Grazie.
grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.